Hey guys, it's Miss Moncrief again, here giving you lesson 3.4. Lesson 3.4. So, lesson 3.4 is still all about writing equations in slope-intercept form. So, before we keep going, let's go ahead and remember a couple of ways that we started it. Let's start by writing the linear equation from a table. So, I'm hoping you remember some of these. Before we can write the equation, we need to find my m and my b. Now, in order to find the m, we need to find the delta or change in y over the delta or change in x. Now, some of the other teachers might have not put the delta symbol. All I'm doing is looking at the difference in my y's and the difference in my x's. So I start by looking at my difference in y's by looking at the bottom. We need to do what negative 29 minus negative 6. So what is negative 29 minus negative 6? And what does that get us? I see what I did wrong. It needs to be negative 26. So we have negative 29 minus negative 26. And what does that get us? Alright, so far my change is negative 3. So negative 3. Now what is negative 26 minus negative 23? Negative 26 minus negative 23. And again we get negative 3. Alright, now we do negative 23 minus negative 20. And again, that gets us negative 3. And now we have negative 20 minus negative 17. And what do we get? Negative 3 again. Oof. And negative 17 minus negative 14. We still get negative 3. And lastly, negative 14 minus negative 11, which will be negative 3. Alright, I found my change in y. So my change in y is going to be negative 3, but I need to find my change in x. So again, starting down at the bottom, 7 minus 6 is 1, 6 minus 5 is 1, 5 minus 4 is 1, 4 minus 3 is 1, 3 minus 2 is 1, and 2 minus 1 is also 1. So my change in x is 1. Now what is negative 3 divided by 1? You guessed it, that is negative 3. So my m or my slope is going to be negative 3. Now we need to find b. B is going to be my y-intercept, or when my x is 0. Now, hopefully you're looking at this table and you're saying, oh my gosh, there is no 0 in the x values. So that means I have to work backwards and get my 0. So let's start on the x side so we know how many times we have to work backwards. So looking at x, we are going to take my 1 and subtract the change. So what is 1 minus 1? You guessed it, that is 0. So how many times on the other side do we have to subtract our change, our rate of change? Once, because we only need to go up once. So what is negative 11 minus negative 3? Let's figure it out. Negative 11 minus, oops, too many minuses, minus negative 3. And what do I get? Negative 8. So my y is going to be negative 8. Now that I have both of them, 0 and negative 8, my b is going to be that y value we got. My b is going to be negative 8. From here, we will just put my m and my b into my equation. Hopefully, you all remember slope-intercept form as y is equal to mx plus b. When we are doing this, we're just going to replace the m and the b with the negative 3 and the negative 8 for what we have. So you should have gotten y is equal to And what do we get for m? Negative 3, so negative 3x. And what do I get for b? Negative 8, so minus 8. And that is your answer. And that is your answer. Just your equation in slope-intercept form. Remember, it is important that you include the y equals and everything, the y equals and the x value. All right, now we want to remember how to write it from a graph. How to write it from a graph. So what I do is I go find 2 points. One of my favorite points to go ahead and find is my y-intercept because we have to find it anyway. So here's my y-intercept. What is my y-intercept? My y-intercept, if you want to write it as a y-intercept, 0, 1. But what does that mean my b is? 1. So my b is 1. So now that I found that, let's go ahead and find my next point. Let's go ahead and find my next point. It'll be right here. All right, so since we find it right there, let's talk about what we need to do. We need to find my rise over my run. First of all, am I going to go up or down in order to find this point? Am I going to go up or down in order to find this point? You're right, I'm going to go down. How many did I go down? 1, 2, 3. I went down 3. Now, since I went down, does that mean is it positive or negative? Well, since I went down, it's going to be negative. So I have negative 3 over 1, 2, because my run is 2. So my m is going to be negative 3 over 2. And now I just need to replace my m and my b with negative 3 over 2 and 1. So I have y is equal to negative 3 over 2 x plus 1. And that is my answer. Y is equal to negative 3 over 2x plus 1. And we know that it is negative because it is going down. All right, let's go ahead and move on to what we were looking at in this lesson, in lesson 3.4. So in lesson 3.4, we are still talking about writing everything in slope-intercept form. But this time we are given the slope. We are given the slope and a point on the line. The directions are given the slope and a point on the line, write an equation in slope-intercept form. So let's look at example 1a. 1a tells us that the equation of our line tells us to write the equation for the line with a slope of negative 4 that passes through negative 2, 5. So we know that negative 4 is my what? Is my m. If you didn't see it, it's right here. And that is because it is my slope. So what I would do first is just plug in my m. So once you plug in m, you should have y is equal to negative 4x plus b. Do I have a b to plug in? No, I have to find it. We are finding b. We are finding b here. Now, but what do I have if I don't have b? I have points x and y. So what we are going to do is plug in our x and our y and then solve for b. So starting here, we're going to plug in 5 for y and negative 2 for x. So you should have 5 is equal to negative 4 times negative 2 plus b. From here, we just simplify and solve for b. So the first step to simplifying is negative 4 times negative 2, which is 8. So you should have 5 is equal to 8 plus b, which is right here. So from here, we need to solve for b, which means we need to move the 8. We have a positive 8, so in order to move the positive 8, we are going to subtract it from both sides. So we have 5 minus 8 is negative 3. So negative 3 is equal to b. Now that we have m and b, m was negative 4 and b is negative 3, we can just plug those in and your answer should be y is equal to negative 4x minus 3. Y is equal to negative 4x minus 3. Alright, now that we kind of had one worked out for us that we talked through, let's slowly go through a few more. So B says we want to write an equation for the line that passes through the point negative 3, we want to write an equation for the line that passes through the point 3, negative 1 with a slope of negative 1. So, my first step to do, I like to always do, is label everything I have. So, do I have an m? Yes, my m is equal to negative 1 because my slope is negative 1. Now, I don't have a b, but I do have an x and a y. What's my x? 3. And what's my y? Negative 1. Alright, so let's start by filling in my m. So you should have y is equal to negative 1 x plus b. Now again, do I have b? No, so can I plug anything in for b? No, but I have an x and a y that I can plug in. What can I plug in for y? Negative 1. So everyone plug in negative 1 for y. So we have negative 1 is equal to, bring down the negative 1 that we multiplied with for my m, and times what? Times 3 for my x. Negative 1 times 3 plus b. And again, what are we solving for here? We are solving for b. So right now, what is negative 1 times 3? You guessed it, that is negative 3. So we have negative 3 plus b is equal to, and we can't change anything about negative 1, so negative 1. Now, which number am I trying to get by itself? B. I'm trying to get b by itself. So we're going to do the inverse operation of negative 3 to both sides in order to get b alone. Now, what is the inverse of subtracting 3? That's right, adding 3. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. What happens on the right with the negative 3 plus a 3? It cancels. And then what is negative 1 plus 3? That is 2. So my b is 2. So now that we have my m and my b, my m being negative 1 and my b being 2, we can just plug those in. So you should have y is equal to negative 1x plus 2. Now I'm sure your other teachers have told you we're past writing this negative 1. So what we really want you to write is y is equal to negative x plus 2, because we know that anything times negative 1 is just the negative version of itself. So it's negative x. So please start to write your answers more like this. But both of these are correct. All right, now let's move on to C. C, we want to write the equation for a line that passes through 3, 5 with a slope of 5/3. So let's start by labeling everything again. So my slope is 5/3, so that means m is equal to 5/3. Now, what is 3? It's an x. And what is 5? It's a y. So let's start by only plugging in my m. Let's only plug in my m. So I have y is equal to 5/3 x plus b. Now, can I do anything with the only number being 5/3? No, I can't. Do I have a b? No, I gotta find it. But do I have an x and a y? Yeah, I have x is 3 and y is 5, so let's plug those in. So I have 5 is equal to 5 over 3 times 3 plus b. And what am I solving for? I hope everyone remembers. We are solving for b. Now we need to multiply and then simplify. What is 5 over 3 times 3? Well, hopefully you know that when you multiply, you can do 5 over 3 times 3 over 1. Multiply across gets me 15 over 3, which is just 5. You can do that. Or we can go to my calculator. We can click alpha, y equals to get my 5 over 3. Oops, hold up, went too fast. So go ahead and do alpha, y equals 1. And do 5 over 3 times 3. And what do we get? We get 5. So 5 over 3 times 3 is 5. So we have 5 plus b is equal to 5. Now, what do I need to do to get b by itself? You guessed it, I need to subtract 5 from both sides. What happens over here? It cancels, and then what is 5 minus 5? Again, that is 0, so 0 is equal to b. 0 is equal to b. Now, we can go ahead and plug in m and b. So we have y is equal to 5 over 3, because that was my m, x, plus, and what was my b? 0. Now, again, because we are in high school, we want to do something new. We want to go ahead and drop the plus 0. We no longer need it, because we know that anything added to 0 is just itself. So we would really love it if you would write your answers as y is equal to 5 over 3 x. And you can only do this when you're adding a 0. So here is your answer for C. Y is equal to 5 over 3 x. Okay, let's keep on going. So let's look at D. D says we want to write the equation in slope-intercept line. That was weirdly said it. Okay. D says we want to write the equation for the line that passes through 3, 1 with a slope of -1/2 in slope-intercept form. In our y is equal to mx plus b. If you were in my class in person, I would make you chant this until I was satisfied with the entire class's participation. So, that is that. So let's go through and label everything. First of all, do I have an m? Of course I have an m. My m is my slope. So my m is -1 over 2. Now, do I have a b? Again, unfortunately not. But I have an x, which is 3. And I have a y, which is 1. So we need to go ahead and let's start by only plugging in our m. I have y is equal to, what's my m? -1/2. -1/2. And then just add everything else to it. X plus b. Do I have b? No, I do not have b. So I need to plug in my x and my y in order to solve for b. So what was my y? 1. So I have 1 is equal to -1 over 2 times 3 plus b. Now again, we have to multiply the -1 over 2 times 3 and then solve for b. So what is negative 1 over 2 times 3? You're right, that is negative 3 over 2 plus b is equal to our good number 1. Now, we need to figure out a way to move negative 3 over 2 to the other side. We are subtracting 3 over 2 from b, so in order to move it over, we have to add 3 over 2 to both sides. So what we are going to do is add, why did that go away? So we're going to add 3 over 2 to both sides. So I'm not going to try to make us remember how to add fractions and whole numbers. Just do 1 plus, again, alpha y equals 1 to get our fraction, 3 over 2. And what do we get? 5 over 2. So b is equal to 5 over 2 is equal to b. Now that I have my m and I have my b, I can plug them in. So I have y is equal to negative 1 over 2 x plus 5 over 2. And that is my equation. And that is my equation. All right, now let's look at e. E, we want to write the equation in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through negative 614 with a slope of 11 over 3. Now, first of all, my m is equal to 11 over 3 because that is my slope. And then I don't have a b, but I have an x is negative 6, and a y is 14. So I always just want to start with only plugging in my m first. So I have y is equal to 11 over 3 x plus b. Do I have a b to plug in? No, but do I have x's and y's to plug in? Yes, so plug those in. We have 14 is equal to 11 over 3 times negative 6 plus b. Now, go ahead and just plug in 11 over 3 times negative 6 in your calculator. So we are going to do alpha y equals 1. Oh no, 1. And we're going to put 11 over 3 times negative 6. And what do we get? Negative 22. So we're left with negative 22 plus b is equal to 14. Now, what else do I need to do in order to get b by itself? I got to move this negative 22 over. I move it over by adding 22 to both sides. What happens on the right? They cancel, and then what is 14 plus 22? That is 36. We have 36 is equal to b. And now that I have both an m and a b, I can plug them into my equation. So y should be equal to 11 over 3 x plus 36. All right. So that's not too bad, right? That's not too bad. If you wanted like a list of rules of thumb, 1, plug in m. 2, plug in x and y. And then 3, Solve for b. And then lastly, 4, plug in m and b. In m and b. So that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. We are now about to talk about some problems that are very similar to what we just looked at, except this time we weren't given m. So we have to find it. Let's go look at it. All right, so looking at example 2. Example 2 says, given 2 points on a line, write the equation in slope-intercept form. So this time we were just given 2 points. So it says write the equation for the line that passes through 3, 4, and 5, 8. Now 3, 4 has x and y written under it to tell us which one's x and which one's y. Let's do the same thing for 5 and 8. 5 is our x and 8 is our y. So this is extremely similar to the ones we just looked at, except the first thing we got to do is find the slope using the slope formula. And for those of you who might have forgotten the slope formula, it is delta x or delta y over delta x. Now that might not help you much, but that means we are just looking at y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So, in order to find the slope, we need to figure out which one's my 2 and my 1. I normally just like to say the one in the back is my 2, so x2 and y2, and the one in the front is my 1, so x1 and y1. So now that we have that figured out, just solve the slope by plugging them in. So plug in 8 for y2, so we have 8 minus 4 over 5 minus 3. y2, 8 minus y1, 4 over x2, 5 minus x1, 3. And we'll just simplify that. 8 minus 4 is 4, and 5 minus 3 is 2. 4 over 2 is just 2. So now that I have that, I have my slope. I have my m. So go ahead and plug it in for m. So I have y is equal to 2x plus b. And then this is just like everything we've looked at. We've looked at when we had slope and a point. So we don't have b, do we? We don't. No, we don't. But we have x and y. So go ahead, pick one of the points and plug in x and y. I will go ahead and pick the first one. A, because they're highlighted. B, because that's what it did. And they're smaller numbers to work with. So what's 2 times 3? That's 6. Very good. So we are left with 4 is equal to 6 plus b. Now we have to solve for b. We're going to do so by getting b by itself by subtracting by 6, which would have given us negative 2. Now, writing the equation, we want to just write the equation using the values for m and b. What was my m again? It was 2. And what was my b? It was negative 2. So once we do that, we should have been given y is equal to 2x minus 2. Sorry. That was not fun. All right, now let's look at B through E. B through E, where we're actually working them out. So B says it passes through the 2 points 4, 5, and 8, 3. Let's go ahead and label our x1, y1, and x2, y2. Yeah. So x1, I'm going to say is 4. And x2, I'm going to say is 8. Now we have y1, I'm going to say is 5. And y2, I'm going to say is 3. So that means we have, in order to find my slope, my m, I'm going to write it in purple. M is equal to, what was my y2? 3 minus 5 all over 8 minus 4 is 8 minus 4 is equal to. Now what is 3 minus 5? 3 minus 5 is negative 2 over, what is 8 minus 4? That is 4. So can we simplify negative 2 over 4? Yes, that will be negative 1/2. So your m should be negative 1/2. So now that we have m, we can start that whole process over again, where we have y is equal to negative 1/2 x plus b. Now I don't have a b to plug in, right? But I have two options for x and y that I can plug in. Now, just for everyone's sake, let's always plug in the first ones. Let's just always plug in the first ones. I think it'll be easier on us, so we're not having to figure it out. I'm going to plug in my first x and y. What is my x? It is 4. So, and what is my y? It is 5. So we are left with 5 is equal to negative 1/2 times 4. And then, of course, my plus b, because we are looking for b. Now, we need to figure out what negative 1/2 times 4 is. That is actually, let's plug it in the calculator. We can do alpha y equals 1, negative 1 over 2 times 4, and what do we get? Negative 2. So that is negative 2. So negative 2 plus b is equal to 5. Now, in order to get b by itself, what do I need to do? I need to add 2 to both sides so that it'll cancel out the 2. What is negative 2 plus 2? Cancels. And what is 5 plus 2? That is 7. So 7 is equal to b, or b is equal to 7. But now that I have both my b and my m, I can just plug them in. So you should have y is equal to negative 1/2 x plus 7. Y is equal to negative 1/2 x plus 7. All right, let's move on to C. Let's move on to C. So C, our line passes through the points negative 1, 2, and 7 over 6. Again, let's label my x's and my y's. My x1 will be negative 1, x1, and my x2 will be 7. So that means my y1 is 2, and my y2 is 6. So in order to find m, I need to do my slope formula, which will be y2 minus y1. So that would be 6 y2 minus 2 y1 all over x2 7 minus x1, which would be minus negative 1. So that will equal, let's see, what is 6 minus 2? That is 4. So we have 4 over. And then what happens when we subtract a negative? Those change into positives. What is 7 plus 1? That it would be 8. Now can we simplify 4 over 8? Yes, by dividing both the top and the bottom by 4, which would give me 1 over 2. So my m is 1/2. So now that I have m, I can just plug it in. I have y is equal to 1/2 x plus b. Now again, do I have b? No, I don't, but I do have x's and y's. I'm just going to use my x1, or my first point. So what can I plug in for y? I can plug in 2. So I have 2 is equal to 1/2 times -1 plus b. 1/2 times -1 plus b. Now what is 1/2 times -1? That is correct. It is -1/2. So plus b is equal to 2. Now what do I got to do to get b by itself? You're right, I got to add the 1/2 to both sides. Got to add the 1/2 to both sides. So what happens on the left, on the right? They cancel. And now let's do 2 plus alpha y equals 1 over 2. And what do we get? 5/2. So b is equal to 5/2, or 5/2 is equal to b. So now that we have my b and my m, we can just plug them in. So we have y is equal to 1/2 x plus 5 over 2. 1/2 x plus 5 over 2. One half x plus 5 over 2. All right, are you ready to look at D? D is going to be different than the ones we just looked at. It's got a little bit of a challenge to it, but I have faith in us to figure it out. So let's start first by what we always do. Let's label everything we know. So we want to create the equation for the line that passes through -2, 6 and -2, 4. All right, let's start with labeling my x's. My x1 is -2. My x2 is -2. Now let's label my y's. My y1 is 6 and my y2 is 4. So we now have my m is equal to y2, so 4, my y2 of 4, minus my y1 of 6, over my x2 of -2, minus my x1 of also -2. All right, let's start on the top. What is 4 minus 6? That is -2. So we have -2 over, let's see what -2 minus 2 is. Now, what happens with this negative, what happens with minus a negative? You're right, it turns into a positive. So what is -2 plus 2? Hopefully you all get it. It is 0. All right, now we have -2 over 0. And I don't know how many of you remember something about anything that is ever divided by 0. Let's look and see what happens. What is -2 divided by 0? Oh my gosh, I got an error because I can't divide by 0. So this is what we call an undefined slope. Undefined slope. And you might remember from lesson 3.3 that when it is undefined, that means we will use, this means we use x equals and not y equals. So in this case, we're going to use x equals, so go ahead and jot that down, x equals. Now, we're going to do x equals our x value. So I'm going to erase some stuff up here so we can look at it a little clearer. So if you look at both of our x values, -2 and -2, we notice that they are both what? My x values are both -2. So when we are getting to an x equals, we just put it as x equals our x values of -2. So x is equal to -2. And that will be your answer. And that will be your answer. All right. Now we have one more to look at. We want to look at writing the line that passes through the point 216 and -1, 7. What do I like to do, everyone? I like to label my x's and my y's. So I have x1 for 2 and x2 for -1. So that means my y1 is 16 and my y2 is 7. So what's my first step in this? Finding my m. So we are going to do m, finding my slope, and we are going to use that slope formula. y2, so 7, minus y1, so 16, over x2 of -1 minus 2 for x1. So let's go figure this out. What is 17 minus 6? What is 7 minus 16? If we can't remember, 7 minus 16, and we get -9. So we have -9 in the numerator. -9 over what is -1 minus 2? It's going to get us -3. Now, can we simplify -9 over -3? Yes, it is just 3. So my m is 3. Since we have that, let's go ahead and plug it in. We should have y is equal to 3 for m, x plus b. Do I have a b? No, I do not. So what does that mean I need to do? I need to plug in an x and a y. Let's just again use my first ones. So I'm going to plug in 16. So 16 is equal to 3 times, and what's my x with 16? 2. And of course my plus b that we are solving for. What is 3 times 2? Everyone who is out there? You're right, that is 6. We have 6 plus b is equal to 16. And now I got to solve for b. I will do so by subtracting 6 on both sides. What is 16 minus 6? That is 10. So 10 is equal to b, as these cancel. So now that I have my m and my b, I can just plug it in. So you should have gotten y is equal to 3x plus 10. All right. And that is all for today's lesson. Today we looked at writing equations of line when either given a slope and a point, which was the first page, or 2 points. If you have any questions, you can contact your teacher. And I hope you all have a lovely day.